Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us. Those of you who might not know, my name is Rachel Phillips. I'm one of the health coaches here at Incenta Health. As always, I love to start these out with a bit of an icebreaker. So feel free to take yourself off mute or use that chat function and tell me something good. What in your life is going well right now? Nothing? That is okay. Lots of sunny days. Yes, Monica. Are you in a location that's having one of these crazy heat waves though? It is hot. I don't try to wish time away, but I am very much looking forward to some good fall weather. Anyone else? Tell me something good. No worries. Let's get into our topic of the week. We are talking about macro counting this week. One of my favorite topics to discuss. I really love leading people how to macro count in the health benefits of macro counting. With that said, counting macros is just one way to track your food intake. This presentation is an overview and for educational purposes only, and by no means do you have to, in order to be successful in your health and wellness journey, do you have to implement macro counting and or tracking. Incenta Health meal plans, if you follow those, have been designed by both dietitians and other nutrition professionals. We have taken care of that on the back end, the calorie counts and the macro counts. So I hope that this is educational. If you have more specific questions about you and your application, just let us know and we can walk you through that. So let's begin. What are macros? If you've never heard of that term, when we talk about macros, we're talking about macronutrients. We also have micronutrients. That can be a different conversation for a different day. But macronutrients are the nutrients our body needs in the largest amounts to maintain homeostasis. So homeostasis is a nice biological term for equilibrium. It means that we are without disease. So everything is running properly. We don't have any crazy imbalances or anything like that. These nutrients supply energy in the form of calories. That's probably what you are most used to tracking, which can be essential to which is essential. It can be essential. It is essential to maintain daily life and activities. The more active that you get, obviously your macronutrient and calorie intake is going to go up. And depending on your type of sport, what you like to get involved in, your macros might be a little bit different compared to somebody else's. So macro breakdown. Calories come from 4 places when we eat them. They come from 4 places. We're going to focus on the first 3, being protein, carbohydrates, fats. We're not going to focus on alcohol. You can always adapt your calorie count if you wanted to integrate alcohol into your eating habit, but we're really going to focus on those first 3. Let's focus on protein first. I think there's a lot of people like to eat a lot of protein and really don't know why. So the purpose of protein is really to support every cell in your body. Every cell that we have, every cell mechanism that we have is all based on amino acids. Nothing can be built without amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Proteins are the building blocks for everything else. So you can kind of think about it like Legos. Your amino acids would be your tiny little pieces, your tiny little Legos, and then a chunk of Legos would be that protein. And if you put it all together, let's take that back. Amino acids are like the little part that you stick it to. The whole Lego is the protein. And then when we build them together, we have whatever it is that we build out of Lego. So that's one way that you can think about all of that. Amino acids come in two categories, essential and non-essential. Essential amino acids means that our body cannot produce them on our own, and we need to consume them by eating. Non-essential means our body can take other forms of proteins and create the amino acids that we need, can break them down, can build them up. So when we talk about like a whole protein, it has all of those essential amino acids. Protein, probably what you know protein for the most is if you're at the gym and you're tearing those muscle fibers by lifting weights. Protein helps our body to heal that damage as well as grow, and it protects our lean muscle mass. It's imperative if you were to have like a large wound on your skin. Our skin is our biggest organ, but say you got a huge scrape on your arm. One of the easiest ways to heal that is to eat more protein. And we actually see that with like the recommendation for like burn patients is to have a little bit more protein per pound of body weight. Obviously we grow both our muscle, our bones, all of that. We really need that protein. And then protecting lean muscle mass, we can utilize other forms of energy rather than breaking down our muscle for energy sources in the future. And what is the way to sustain something? By feeding ourselves that. A couple of sources of protein. Most people know protein as like an animal source, which is absolutely one way to get it. So eggs, dairy products, any sort of meat, seafood, but you can also get protein in vegetarian options. So beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, nut butters, and some fruit and vegetables are pretty high in protein. Gram for gram, broccoli is higher in protein than steak. Yeah, any questions about protein so far? And this how to count piece will be really important at the end of this presentation. So 1 gram of protein gives us 4 calories of energy. Calories is a unit of measurement for energy. Really, how much energy does it take to burn? Chemistry was not my strong suit. Awesome. Let's pop over to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are probably my favorite. They're a lot of people's favorite. They're in high abundance and they're cheap and easy to get. But why do we need carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are the first thing that we metabolize. The breakdown of carbohydrate actually starts in our mouth, whereas everything else starts in our gut, in our stomach before it goes into the small intestine. Sorry, I just got distracted. So carbs break down into glucose, which is the building block of any other compound sugar is glucose. So sucrose is like sucrose, table sugar is 2 glucose molecules. Fructose, I don't honestly remember, but fruit sugar is glucose plus something else. And glucose, the reason that glucose is so important is it is, for some of our systems, is the most used fuel source. The brain actually prefers to use glucose over anything else. Other systems in our bodies like ketones, which is broken down fat. And like our liver will always use ketones. That's how it's designed, but our brain really doesn't like using ketones. It wants to use glucose either as we're actively feeding, or it will break down muscle tissue into glucose to keep it functional. And our brain is arguably one of the most important organs that we have. So taking care of it is really, really important. Carbohydrates also help synthesize some of those protein via amino acids, and then fiber in the form of when you have a fiber dense carbohydrate. So produce, brown rice, quinoa, things like that, starches. Those help our GI tract functioning properly. And a functional GI tract, we've talked about before, supports our mental health and obviously mitigates some diseases later on. And we really want to keep that GI tract like a free highway. We don't want any traffic jams. So sources of carbohydrates, again, they are the most abundant. Pretty much anything that you pick it might be a carbohydrate. So any type of sugar, including honey, agave, table sugar, is a carbohydrate. Baked goods, your bread, buns, cakes, bagels, all carbohydrates. Produce, fruit, and vegetables give us a little bit of carbohydrate. They're not very high in calories. And then those grains like rice, quinoa, and oats. And again, how to count this is going to be important in a little bit, but 1 gram of carbohydrate equals 4 calories. Any questions on carbs? Carbs are not something to be scared of. Our body really, really needs them. So when people say they're going on a low carb diet, make sure that they're going on a nutrient dense carb diet. You get to eat a lot more food if you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables versus getting all your carbohydrates from like donuts. There's not very many nutrients in that. Not saying that donuts are bad. If you need a self-care donut, go for it. And lastly, fats. We're going to talk about fats. There are arguably three different types, maybe 4 different types of fats. We have saturated fats. Those tend to be solid at room temperature. So animal fats, butter, the fat that you see on any sort of meat, all saturated. And then we have unsaturated fatty acids, both mono and poly. It's the degree of unsaturation for those fats. And those tend to be liquid at room temperature. So think about your oils. Even like avocado is an unsaturated fatty acid. And when we talk about good fats, it's those polyunsaturated fatty acids that we're talking about. And then the last one is trans fats. I'm a firm believer that trans fats really don't have a place in our diet. They are not found anywhere in nature. They are found in commercially processed foods. So like bakery items will probably have trans fats. Anything that's fried, French fries, chicken nuggets, whatever your fried food of taste might have trans fats in it as well. The way that we get trans fats is changing up the structure of the fat. It makes it a little bit more sustainable. So the fat itself, meaning that we can use it longer. But again, there are a lot of health implications to eating a lot of trans fats. So we want to mitigate that as much as we can and really focus on those unsaturated fatty acids and sometimes those saturated fatty acids. Fat, just like protein and carbohydrates, has an important role in our body. Without adequate fat intake, we can't absorb vitamins A, E, D, and K, those fat soluble vitamins. The rest of them are water soluble. So as long as you're hydrated, you can eat those, you urinate them out if you have them in excess. But fat soluble vitamins, we need that fat. Fat is also a building block for some hormones. Cholesterol, both what we can synthesize and what we eat. We synthesize it through our skin. Our vitamin D, we synthesize through our skin with sunlight. Those hormones are actually fat-based. So we need to have fat to continue to have hormonal regulation. And fats also protect our cells, membrane integrity, and helps like lubricate different systems. So there's good science that shows if you have like bad back and achy knees, increasing your healthy fats is actually really, really beneficial it's like WD-40 on your knees. So where does fat come from? Obviously, animal products, meat, dairy, eggs, nuts, seeds, oils, peanut and butters, nut butters, regular butter, margarine, etc. And then some produce like coconuts, avocados, and olives also come with some significant fat content. And fat is kind of like the redheaded stepchild. We get 9 calories per gram of fat. Fat was, if we think back a couple hundred years ago, when we were not in a country that had supermarkets everywhere, fat was one of the best things for folks to eat because we get to insulate ourselves, and it gives us the most energy. Any questions on fats? And you probably know about omega-3, omega-6s, and omega-9s. Omega-3s are really, really, really good for brain health, whereas omega-6s tend to be a little bit more inflammatory. And omega-6 fatty acids are in so many foods, and we don't want as many as we're getting, and we really want to increase that omega-3 fatty acid. You can get it from things like fish oil, chia seeds, flax seeds. Like I said, really, really good for brain function. So let's put this all together. This is just a sample of a 50, 25, 25% breakdown for 2,000 calorie diet. Again, if you wanted to implement this for yourself, your calorie count is going to probably be a little bit different. And then depending on your goals, your percent of daily intake is going to also look different. But if we take protein, for example, we want that to be 25% of our daily intake. So we're looking at about 500 calories every day coming from protein. And if you divide that by, so 500 calories divided by 4 calories per gram of protein, we want 125 grams. Same thing with carbs. We're going to break that down to about 250 grams of carb a day. In fat, we want about 56. If you do that math, that comes down to 55.5. And if you look at those numbers, they might seem really, really drastic, but our food tends to go a little bit further than you would expect. 3 eggs, for example, is almost 30 grams of protein. So if that's part of your breakfast, you're eating a lot of protein right there. What was I going to go with that? Oh, one of the reasons that I love macro counting is because we don't have to restrict any certain food groups. You can make any food kind of fit into your daily macros. So let's say today is your birthday, your spouse comes home with a really wonderful chocolate cake, and you're like, I can't have that because it's not a good carb, whatever. Yeah, whatever your narrative is. But macro counting has room for that piece of cake. So if you're like, yes, I really want this piece of cake, I know it's going to be 50 grams of carbs, I can just take that out of my 250 for the day and then start again tomorrow. There's no need with macro counting hopefully there's no need for macro counting to feel that all or nothing binge type of eating. Like I said, we don't have to cut out any certain food groups. Obviously, if you're allergic or sensitive to any food groups, you don't want to eat those. But under macro counting, nothing is deemed good or bad. It's just nutrient dense or calorie dense, and everything can fit. Any questions on that? I know that's kind of a big topic. Oh, awesome. Well, if you do have any questions about macro counting, you can submit them for next week's monthly Q&A. We've sent out the Google form a couple times, but we'll make sure to send that out again. Or you can email us at personal.trainer@incentahealth.com, and we will make sure to get your question on the books for next week. If you have missed any of our past wellness chats, feel free to find them, watch them, share them with any of your friends, families, colleagues at incentahealth.com/wellness chats. All of them from the entire year are there. Feel free to go back and watch them. And as always, we invite you to connect with us if you have any questions about your specific health and well-being needs, or how the program works, anything like that. You can email us, call us, or chat with us in the app online Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.